You probably don't think of yourself as extraordinary. You don't walk around with a crown on your head or a medal on your chest. You just keep showing up. You listen when others speak, even when no one listens to you. You stay when things get hard. You hold your tongue to keep the peace. You forgive faster than you probably should. And the people around you, friends, partners, family, employers, they don't always notice it. In fact, most of them don't notice it at all. Because the strange thing about loyalty is that the more consistently you give it, the less visible it becomes. The more you remain, the more you're expected to. It stops being admirable, it starts being assumed, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, your presence is no longer seen as a gift, but as a given. That's the kind of suffering that doesn't scream. It whispers. It drains you slowly. It's not a betrayal in the traditional sense. It's not someone stabbing you in the back. It's being forgotten while standing in plain sight. This is the world we live in, a world that celebrates loud exits more than silent loyalty, a world that rewards ambition, self-promotion, and cold strategy far more than it ever honors quiet consistency. And if you've ever felt like your loyalty has become your prison, if you've ever wondered why the good ones suffer the most while the selfish seem to thrive, this video is for you. Because this isn't just about loyalty, it's about waking up and maybe finally setting yourself free. They teach you from a young age that loyalty is a virtue worth cultivating, that to be loyal is to be strong, to be righteous, to be someone that others can rely on when everything else begins to fall apart. But what they don't tell you, what no school or family or religion ever seems to mention, is that the world rarely rewards loyalty in the way you expect. In fact, the truth that slowly seeps into your bones over time is far darker and more painful. The world doesn't reward loyalty, it punishes it. You see, when you are loyal, when you commit yourself fully to people, causes, systems, or beliefs, you become predictable. And when you become predictable, you stop being seen as human and start being treated as a tool, something to be used, something to be leaned on, something to be expected, until your value is no longer appreciated, only assumed. And the longer you remain loyal, especially in silence, the more invisible you become to those who benefit from your devotion. They stop asking how you feel. They stop wondering if you're okay. Because you've always been there, haven't you? So why would they imagine a world where you weren't? It starts in subtle ways, being left out of a conversation, being the last to know, being the one who always gives but never receives. But soon it becomes your normal. You're the dependable friend, the consistent partner, the tireless worker. You make room for others. You hold their pain. You carry their burdens as if they were your own. And when it comes time for someone to hold yours, there's often no one left, because they've come to believe you're invincible, that your heart can absorb anything, that your time, your energy, your presence is infinite. History does not spare the loyal. It forgets them, discards them, or worse, blames them when things fall apart. Consider the tragic figure of Marcus Junius Brutus, a man who was once as close as a son to Julius Caesar. Brutus was loyal, not to Caesar the man, but to the idea of the Roman Republic. When Caesar's ambition threatened to dissolve the fragile balance of Rome's democracy, Brutus made the impossible choice to betray the man he loved in order to protect the ideal he served. And yet his loyalty to Rome was not recognized. Instead, he was hunted as a traitor, cast out, and eventually driven to take his own life. He had remained loyal to an ideal while the world rewarded others for their ambition and ruthlessness. That is the cruel irony of loyalty. It often demands self-sacrifice and silence, and offers no protection when your usefulness has run its course. And the ones who remain after your loyalty has broken you will look at the wreckage of your life with a kind of detached confusion, wondering why you gave so much when you could have walked away. But here's the reversal. The moment that begins to shift your understanding. Loyalty is not inherently noble when it lacks reciprocity. Your commitment should not be a life sentence. Your ability to stay should not mean you are expected to endure. There is a kind of strength, not in holding on, but in knowing when your loyalty is serving no one, least of all yourself. Because if your presence is only valued in the moments you're needed, then your absence will teach them what your silence never could. And maybe that is the beginning of a different kind of loyalty, not to others, but to yourself. There is a painful truth that most loyal people learn too late in life, a truth that unravels quietly, often after years of heartbreak, betrayal, and emotional fatigue. And that truth is this: the more loyal you are, the more you will attract people who are not looking for connection, but for control. People who do not seek mutual respect, but quiet submission. People who mistake your strength for softness and your consistency for something they are entitled to, rather than something they are lucky to have. Because the person who is loyal, who shows up without being asked, who forgives without requiring an apology, who gives without keeping score, becomes a mirror for those who are incapable of offering the same. And rather than rising to meet that level of integrity, many will exploit it. They will push to see how far your patience stretches. They will test whether you will still stay after you've been lied to, disrespected, or forgotten. And if you do stay, if you remain loyal even then, they won't see it as love or honor. They will see it as weakness, and they will use that perceived weakness to excuse their own behavior. This is not a hypothetical situation. This is a pattern that history repeats again and again in every domain of life: relationships, politics, business, family. And the damage it causes isn't just emotional, it's existential. It chips away at your sense of self, your belief in justice, your faith in the idea that being good, being true, being loyal will somehow lead to peace or fulfillment. Look no further than the story of Tsar Nicholas II, the last emperor of Russia, whose unwavering loyalty to his inner circle, his outdated ideals, and the royal traditions of his ancestors blinded him to the desperate needs of his people. He remained loyal to advisors who were corrupt, out of touch, and self-interested. He stayed faithful to a system that had already begun to rot from within. And while his intentions may have been rooted in a genuine desire to preserve stability and honor, that loyalty ultimately led his country into revolution, his family into execution, and his name into infamy. He died a prisoner, not because he was evil, but because he clung to the wrong people for far too long. His loyalty did not protect him, it destroyed him. And perhaps that's the most devastating realization of all, that loyalty, when offered indiscriminately, does not build bridges, it builds chains. You stay loyal to the job that overworks you and underpays you, because you think loyalty will eventually be rewarded with recognition. You stay loyal to a friend who constantly takes but never gives, because you believe that your love might finally teach them how to love you back. You stay loyal to a partner who makes you feel small, invisible, replaceable, because somewhere deep inside, you've confused loyalty with love and suffering with strength. But here's where everything begins to shift. Here's the reversal that starts to free you. The problem was never loyalty itself. The problem was the direction it was pointed in. Loyalty is not weakness. It's not foolishness. It's not naivety. Loyalty is power, but only when it is given to those who are equally committed, equally present, equally invested. Loyalty without boundaries is not loyalty. It is self-abandonment masquerading as virtue. So maybe the real lesson isn't to stop being loyal. It's to start being loyal to yourself first, to your peace, to your values, to your future. And from that place, you can choose where your loyalty flows, not as a reaction, not as an obligation, but as a sacred, deliberate offering. Because the moment you understand that not everyone is worthy of your loyalty is the moment you begin to heal from the wounds of those who never deserved it in the first place. There comes a point in the life of every loyal person where they begin to feel the weight of a strange contradiction, a paradox that gnaws quietly at the corners of the heart, because the very thing that once made them proud, the very virtue they built their identity upon, slowly turns into the reason they feel trapped, bitter, and quietly broken. Loyalty, when repeated in the wrong direction for too long, becomes not a badge of honor, but a chain you forge for yourself, link by link, with every second chance you gave to someone who didn't deserve it. What makes this loop so devastating is that it doesn't feel like a trap in the beginning. It feels like love. It feels like nobility. It feels like doing the right thing. You forgive, not because you're naive, but because you believe in people. You stay, not because you don't see the damage, but because you hope your consistency will somehow heal it. You wait, not because you don't have the power to walk away, but because you've convinced yourself that loyalty means endurance, even when that endurance is slowly killing your spirit. And so, the loop begins. Someone hurts you. You explain it away. They do it again. You silence yourself again. They take more. You shrink further, until you start to believe that your suffering is just the price you pay for being the strong one. And it's in that place, in that emotional twilight zone where the pain becomes routine, that loyalty begins to morph into something far more dangerous: self-betrayal. Throughout history, there are countless examples of loyalty being tested, corrupted, and ultimately punished. But few are as poignant as the story of General Yue Fei, a revered military commander in China's Song dynasty, whose loyalty to his country and emperor was unshakable even in the face of sabotage. He fought tirelessly to defend the Song dynasty from invading forces, and yet, despite his unmatched devotion, he was framed by corrupt officials who saw his integrity as a threat to their power. Rather than being rewarded for his service, Yue Fei was executed by the very emperor he had vowed to protect. To this day, his story serves as a symbol of both heroic loyalty and the tragic fate that often awaits those who remain too true in a world that values convenience over principle. In the personal realm, the same pattern plays out, just quieter. You become the friend who's always there, but never heard. The partner who gives endlessly but grows lonelier by the year. The employee who holds a company together from the shadows, only to be laid off when profits dip. And because you're loyal, you don't speak up. You don't make a scene. You rationalize. You minimize. You tell yourself that if you just hold on a little longer, things will get better. But here's the reversal. Here's the quiet, powerful shift that begins to unravel the loop. Loyalty is not measured by how much you can tolerate. It is measured by how clearly you can see and still choose wisely. You are not meant to stay loyal to pain or to people who benefit from your silence or to systems that reward your endurance with emptiness. True loyalty begins when you are honest enough to ask, Does this still align with who I am? Or am I just afraid to let go of the version of me that held this all together? Because sometimes walking away isn't the betrayal. Staying silent is, not to them, but to yourself. At some point, after the countless silent sacrifices, after the tears shed behind closed doors, after the invisible wounds that loyalty carved into your life, you begin to feel it. Not anger, not bitterness, but exhaustion. A kind of soul-deep fatigue that doesn't come from doing too much, but from doing too much for people and systems that never truly saw you. And in that quiet breaking, in that slow erosion of belief, comes the question that changes everything. What if loyalty, real, meaningful loyalty, is not about how long you stay, but about who you become in the staying? Because here's the truth you were never taught. Loyalty is not the absence of boundaries. It is not the suppression of your voice, or the surrendering of your worth, or the quiet acceptance of roles you never asked to play. Loyalty is not about carrying the weight of others while yours goes unnoticed. It is not about being endlessly patient, endlessly available, endlessly forgiving while your soul hollows out behind the scenes. Number loyalty, when it is whole and mature and conscious, is an act of alignment. It is the choice to stand by something or someone that reflects the values you believe in. Not because you're afraid to leave, but because you genuinely see truth, beauty, and reciprocity in what remains. But to arrive at that version of loyalty, something has to die. The old version of you, the one who confused endurance with character, the one who mistook pain for purpose, the one who stayed silent in the name of peace, has to be let go. Because there is a kind of betrayal that happens in the mirror. And it is far more devastating than anything another person could do to you. It's the betrayal of self. Consider the story of Galileo Galilei, a man loyal to truth in a time of fear. He stood against the Catholic Church not out of rebellion, but out of reverence for what he knew to be real, the evidence he saw in the stars, the quiet certainty of his observations. And for that loyalty to truth, he was condemned, forced to recant, silenced, imprisoned. Yet his name endured. Because while the world punished him, his loyalty was to something deeper than approval. It was to integrity. And in the end, that's the only kind of loyalty that survives history. So what does this mean for you? It means your loyalty must evolve. It must be tested not by how much it bends, but by how clearly it reflects who you are becoming. It means you owe no one the parts of yourself that you've outgrown. Not the friend who guilt trips you, not the partner who drains you, not the job that quietly kills your creativity. You are allowed, no required, to be loyal to your growth, your peace, your boundaries. Because if you continue to sacrifice those things in the name of not disappointing others, the only person you end up betraying is the future version of you who needed someone to stand up. And here's the final reversal, the one that ties all of this pain and confusion into something liberating. The world may not reward loyalty, but you can. You can decide that your loyalty will no longer be cheap, that it will no longer be handed out just because someone asked for it, that it must be earned gently, slowly, by people who show up with the same fire, the same presence, the same respect that you offer without question. Because the moment you stop punishing yourself in the name of being good is the moment your loyalty becomes a gift again, not a burden. So what do you do after the world has shown you that your loyalty doesn't shield you from pain? What do you do once you've realized that the ones you stood by were never truly standing beside you? Do you close off? Do you turn cold, become calculating, start playing the same games they played with you? Maybe you try, for a while. Maybe you tell yourself you'll never let anyone in again, that you'll be selfish now, that you'll put up walls so high no one will ever touch you. And yet, you know that's not who you are, because no matter how much you've been hurt, your loyalty isn't a flaw. It's not something broken inside you. It's the part of you they never deserved in the first place. The real shift comes when you stop offering that loyalty freely to everyone and start reserving it for those who meet you with the same depth, the same energy, the same soul. It's not about becoming bitter. It's about becoming wise. It's about learning to guard your heart without shutting it down, to give without being emptied, to stay soft without being walked on, to remain open without being used. Because in a world that teaches people to look out for themselves first, your loyalty, when placed with care, when grounded in self-respect, isn't just rare, it's revolutionary. And so, if you've ever been hurt by the people you stayed loyal to, don't let that pain convince you to change who you are. Let it remind you that you are not here to be used up and left behind. You are not here to prove your worth through your suffering.